How long do construction workers work? In this video, I'm going to talk to you about the typical hours, some of the contributing factors, and allow you, whether you're thinking about becoming a construction worker or you want to evaluate how much you're working right now, to have more information to assess this important topic. So we'll talk about how long workers can work, a little bit about how long they should work, but I'm going to actually do a complete other video on that as well. And a little bit on why it will help to not overburden resources. So let's do this. Let me first say my favorite reference of all times is that the U.S. military, and I'm sorry, that's my reference in the U.S., but the U.S. military found that soldiers can march farther if they got a 10-minute break every hour. Right? So you can go with a tough guy, like let's just keep going, whatever, but your body needs breaks, okay? Humans need breaks. This is not a pandering, soft type thing. Like this is a real thing. The human body needs breaks, just like a backhoe or an engine or anybody would need a break, right? So there should be a limit or a standard for how long workers work. So let me take you through that right now. So the work hours vary considerably from company to company. Let me give you a couple of references. So like there are some big general contractors that are like, nope, we're working 4 days a week and we're going to work 4 10s. Love that. There's pros and cons to working a 5-day week or a 4-day week. Love that. Some people, most people just work within a 5-day week. There are contractors that make it mandatory to work all 5 days plus Saturday, and some people even resort to Sunday. Let me say this, be careful because you don't want to overburden yourself. Then you will get fatigued, then you will not be mentally present, then you could get injured. That will lead to chronic pain. Chronic pain leads to opioid addictions and to abuse of other painkillers, which leads to marital problems, which leads to divorce, and I'm not even going to continue. You get my point. Do not overburden you as a resource or other workers. But there is some flexibility there, right? There are times when you must work night shift. I hope not. There's times when you have to work early, like in Phoenix, we start at 3, 4, 5 a.m. in the morning and finish earlier because it gets really, really hot. In some regions of the world where it gets really cold, you'll work more in the middle of the day. And then there are some people who work out of town who actually choose to work on the weekends, or there might be 2 shifts. A couple of warnings with this. Night work is very, very detrimental to your circadian rhythm. It's very, very difficult. I know that our economy works on having swing shift and graveyard shifts, but it is very, very destructive. It will, and I can link you to some books in the description below if you would like, it will take years off of your life. It will run down your body. So I'm asking you to look for a balance here, whether it's you're working in weekends or you're working earlier or late or at night. Attempt to find a balance. Only do it for a certain amount of time. Make sure that you're flexible. Make sure that if you are working on the weekends that you take breaks on Monday or Tuesday. You get my idea. It's not work all of it. It's work wherever it needs to be by job, but in a balance, making sure that you get breaks. The standard work week is about 40 hours. I, in construction, believe it's probably more like 48. Here's why I say that. 48 gets you through a nice work week with a little bit of overtime if the workers want it. Anything over 48 hours. Now, obviously, you're going to pay overtime, so that's up to the contractor and the job site, but 40 to 48 hours tends to be the average. Anything over 48, you're really going to want to watch the fatigue and the morale of the crew, because it can really affect you, not only because you're overworked, not only because you're tired, not only because that's additional time, but you're also away from loved ones and family and away from your routines. So be very, very careful. Typically that will be between 7 o'clock to 3:30 or 8 o'clock and 4:30. Like I said, in Phoenix, we see people starting at 6, 5:35, sometimes even 4:34, so that they can work in those early hours, get to work obviously before traffic, which is a huge concern, by the way, and then get off earlier in the afternoon when it's really, really hot and you can't get a break, especially in the humidity. When we are talking about overtime, I've talked to you about the 40 to 48 hours. Overtime is typically about 50 to 60 hours in a week. I really would caution you against workers working more than 60 hours a week. In fact, I don't even believe in the 48 to 60, but over 60, that is insane. I know for a fact you will not get the productivity, and it is not worth the time. And typically you're paying time and a half or double time at that point anyway. On another topic, in addition to the differences that you might find in different regions of the country and different circumstances, you'll also have seasonal circumstances, right? So let me give you a for instance, right? If there are monsoons, or like when I used to work with contractors in Florida, when there was rain, workers would choose to take those days off and then make it up on the weekends. That's totally fine. As long as it works with their family, there's a little bit of flexibility there. Understand that your work hours will change with weather and seasons. So there's a lot of flexibility there. Where you start to get less flexibility is if you have an AHJ, authority having jurisdiction requirement. If you have city requirements, like that you can't work within certain hours. For instance, if you can't start early, you can only start at 7 because there are residences around that will prohibit you from working early, right? That might be a consideration. Or if there are access issues, meaning you can't get into the facility except for certain times. And then there are also union regulations, which regulate when workers can start, how long they can start, and if you choose to engage in overtime, how much you will pay for time and a half and double time, depending on the amount of hours worked. Everywhere you go, not only the owner and the contractor, but also the employees need to research the local regulations, because there are sometimes county, city, state, and federal regulations governing how long workers can work. And so it's your job as the employer, the foreman, or the superintendent, or the general contractor to research that and make sure you are not going over those limits. And the bottom line here is that when you overwork crews, you really get them into a point of fatigue. When they're fatigued, they don't make the same decisions as they would as if they were fully alert. Then they start to make quality mistakes, then you have rework, then you've stopped planning, now you have a lot of stops and restarts, now you're going to have a productivity spiral. In a study done by the US federal government, overtime, when enacted, will ramp up to about week 2, and then at about week 6, it hits the normal productivity levels, and then after week 6 it hits, and week 9 specifically, it exponentially drops from fatigue. So between about week 2 and about week 6, you can get a little bit, like 5 to 15% additional productivity from working overtime, but it's really, really not that effective. So we're talking about the lives of human beings here. So be very, very realistic with this. If you want to go fast, if you want to flow, look at some of the other videos that we have that will talk to you about leveling zones, leveling crew durations or crew composition, having the right number of zones, feeding them with the information that they need. Most of the time, overtime is not the answer. Enabling the workforce is the key. So let me give you a quick concept before we move on. Because in the other video, I'm going to talk to you about the amount of hours that people should work, which in my opinion, I think you asked because you're here, is about 40 to 48 hours a week, unless they really want to do some overtime, and reasonable hours, not in the heat of the day, out of conditions, as extreme conditions as much as possible, without overburden and a lot of unevenness. But here's the key. There's this concept that I just learned that I think is beautiful. If you love something, you must also love the supportive elements. Meaning if you love a flower or a rose, you also love the soil, the pot, the water, the fertilizer, the sun, the environment. You can't love the flower and pluck it. Then you're just using it. You like it, but you don't love it. If you love something, you love the supportive conditions. So if you love a worker, and I know you do because you're on this channel, then you need to love the breaks. You love the lunch times. You love the start times. You love the adjustments to get them out of the heat. You love the adjustments to get them out of the cold. You understand that there's a limit. You understand that they need to get home to their families. You love balance. You put that in there as a part of the system so you can support the individual. The big thing that we don't understand in construction is that people are an exhaustible resource. You can exhaust them. Workers are at their best between start time and 11 a.m. in the morning if they work day shifts, and they only have a certain amount of mental discipline. They're human beings just like us, and we've got to make sure that we're going at the pace that they can go and be healthy at the same time. So please keep these in mind. If you're wanting to come into construction as a worker, these are some good parameters to understand. And if you're an employer, please keep it within the limit and adjust it to cater to the people and to the resource. I'm going to leave this with you in the blog post in the description below. I hope you've enjoyed this. On we go.